live. Do we have all the panelists here? May I request the panelists to switch their cameras on?
Hey, Sumit.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Singh. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, good. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, Preeti. Good morning, Chandan.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Sumit.
Yeah, hi. Okay, and the two Complinity that we see are is my team. So thank you, team, for joining in. Thank you, panelists. Shall we start with the permission of the panelists?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, so hi, I'm Sumit Pahwa, and I'll introduce myself last. And let me start with introducing our panelists. To start with, Ms. Preeti Pahwa. Ms. Preeti Pahwa is a fellow company secretary and a corporate lawyer with over 22 years of experience and is the founder partner at eMinds Legal, a leading corporate law firm in Gurgaon. Preeti has considerable rich hands-on experience in corporate secretarial and board matters, corporate restructuring, transaction advisory, and due diligence. Preeti is supported by a 40-member strong team of company secretaries and lawyers at eMinds Legal, which renders corporate secretarial and legal services to several small, medium, and large MNC clients. Preeti is the co-author of the best-selling book on Companies Act titled Corporate Law Referencer and is also a regular speaker at ICSI and several management institutes. Preeti is also a trainer on POSH and has conducted over 100 workshops and trained over 5,000 people. So welcome, Preeti, to the panel discussion on CSR today.
Thank you, Sumit, for the introduction.
All right, so joining us also is Mr. Ravinder Singh. Mr. Ravinder Singh is a seasoned HR professional, an XLRI alumni with 3 decades of work experience, leading the entire gamut of people management, rewards, industrial relations, CSR, and sustainability into various industrial segments. Mr. Singh is currently working with MARELLI India, which is a leading automotive MNC, as Director People and Rewards and Head of CSR, and is currently building a technical R&D center of 1,000+ engineers through different talent acquisition approach. Mr. Singh is also a lifetime member of All India Management Association, member of Professional Network Group of India, HR Federation of India, for sharing his professional ideas and knowledge. So welcome, Mr. Singh, and thank you for being part of the panel discussion today.
Thank you, Sumit, for the introduction, and nice to be here with all of you today.
Thank you. The third panelist today is Mr. Chandan Narang. Chandan Narang is a company secretary and a law graduate with 15+ years of experience in secretarial, regulatory compliances, and legal affairs. He's worked with the companies like PVR, Make My Trip for around 7 years before he joined eMinds Legal. Today, he's an associate partner with eMinds Legal, heading secretarial and FEMA vertical. Chandan has been advising various corporates and startups on matters like debt and equity financing, transaction advisory, investor agreements, deposits, buyback, fast-track mergers, incorporations, winding up, due diligence, compliance audits, secretarial audits, etc., etc. And he's also co-author of the book Corporate Law Referencer. So welcome, Chandan, as a panelist.
Thank you, Sumit, for the introduction, and great to be part of this panel.
Thank you. Since I'm the host, there is no one else to introduce me, but I'll give a 30-second brief about myself. I'm Sumit Pahwa. I am a company secretary, corporate lawyer, and an MBA with around 25 years of experience. Half of it in the industry, half of it in the on the consulting side, and the other sort of there's no third half, but 6 years with Complinity as a co-founder. And talking about Complinity, Complinity is India's leading compliance software, adding value to 700+ companies all over India and 10,000+ users across 50+ industry verticals. And Complinity caters to all the laws which are applicable in the country to any corporate across 50+ industry verticals. It has 2,000+ laws, 25,000+ compliances. So with a vision and mission to helping companies comply with the help of technology. So Complinity is bringing this, has put up this webinar together in the monthly webinar series, gathered experts on CSR, which is a good hot topic, and which is even hot now because company, one, it is mandatory. Second, it is the right thing to do. And most importantly, most of the CSR happens between January to March. So I think from a timing perspective, since whatever you do not spend by 31st March, either has to be put in unspent account or given in Schedule 7 and penalties and this and that and whatever, which we'll talk about today. So I think it's an apt time not to wait for the last day or the last minute, but to see what is CSR, what are the several rules, regulations, best practices, how are corporates implementing CSR, etc., etc. So we have two people, as you see, who are lawyers and company secretaries and also authors of companies, corporate law referencer, who will talk about more on the rules and regulations and penalties and FAQs and gray areas and stuff. And we have Mr. Ravinder Singh, who will share he heading the CSR vertical in his company. He will share the practical aspects of how CSR is being actually implemented in his company and what are the best practices. And, it's like, the true test is when the rubber meets the road. So, while law practitioners will share their perspective of what the law says, here's the Director HR and Director CSR, who will share how does a company actually read the law, interpret the law, and implement the law in letter and in spirit. So that's a great mix of, I would say, panelists. We're going to make it interesting, live, more engaging, conversational, less of presentations. And if any one of you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A box. Someone says can't hear anything. Please fix up your increase the volume. I hope all the panelists can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So, okay. And whoever on the participant side can hear me, just give me a thumbs up, so that I get a thumbs up that you can hear us loud and clear. Yes, participants are giving a thumbs up. All right. So this is the best way of one-to-many conversation when there are many hundred participants. So thank you for joining in great numbers. And here we start. So, okay, starting with Preeti. Preeti, before we jump onto the topic, okay, but before, on a timeline perspective, this is 12:12. We will end by 1:30 sharp. So 12 to 1, we will do the panel discussion and small presentations. And 1 to 1:30, we can take Q&A. So if you have any questions during the conversations, you can please put up in the Q&A box. I will take the questions between 1 to 1:30. All right, so starting with Preeti. Preeti, if you could give an overview to set the context, to break the ice, a brief overview of the CSR provisions in Companies Act 2013.
Thank you, Sumit, for giving me this opportunity. And while I start with this, allow me to share the screen. So CSR is actually a very interesting subject. And every year the government comes out with notifications to scare the professionals and to scare the corporates. However, once we read through the lines, such kind of webinars and discussions are important, to bring a clarity to the chaos. So I will quickly run you. Most of us are professionals, I believe, and the law as well. However, just to set the context right, just to bring a kind of a sequence to the events, it's important for us to refresh the legal provisions quickly, and I will do that. Let's start. So, simple question, what is CSR? And the activities undertaken by a company in pursuance of Section 135 and the rules under the law. However, the activities shall not include the following. Activities undertaken in pursuance of the normal course of the business. So any business activity in the routine course of business, for example, the hospital say that I'm running a hospital healthcare, is it not included? Of course, it is not, because that's the normal course of business of the company. There are certain exemptions provided because of the COVID for financial year 2021 to 22-23 for companies engaged in R&D activities for new vaccines, drugs, etc. Because of obvious reasons, because of this pandemic. Second was the exclusion is activity undertaken by the company outside India. So any company doing some, again, taking an example of some healthcare activity or some, economic upliftment activity outside India doesn't get included because that's not in India, except for training of Indian sports personnel outside. So somebody representing a sportsman or a sports person representing any state or union territory, either at national level in India or at international level, he or she getting trained outside India is an exemption. So that will still be counted. Contribution to any political party, of course, for obvious reasons, that cannot be counted as CSR activity. Activities benefiting employees of the company under Code of Wages Act. Activities supported by the companies on sponsorship basis. So there are companies which do certain activities on sponsorship basis, and they do it for marketing of their products or marketing of their business. That's not a CSR. Next is for fulfillment of any other statutory obligation under any other law in force in India cannot be deemed to be a CSR activity, because that's a statutory obligation on the organization. So the amended definition is not exclusive, and it clearly specifies the activities which shall not be treated as CSR. So the above is clearly excluded. Coming to the applicability of CSR provisions, for a company with a net worth of 500 crores or more, or turnover of 1,000 crores or more, or net profit of 5 crore or more. Again, there's an or in, and as we all are aware, if any of these criteria get met, the CSR provisions get applicable. And now this criteria to be met during immediately preceding financial year. Net profit is to be computed in accordance with 198, section 198 of the Act, and the formula for CSR is 2% of average net profits of immediately preceding pre-financial year. That's the law. So every time we talk about CSR, board of directors, CSR committees, let's understand the roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders. Okay, the responsibilities of CSR committee. First and foremost, it is supposed to formulate and recommend CSR policy to the board. Recommending the CSR expenditure and the annual action plan to the board. Then most important is monitoring of the CSR policy. So once the recommendations have been done, once the CSR policy gets formulated and approved by the board, then to monitor that CSR policy becomes the responsibility of the CSR committee. So ensuring the spend, keeping all the records and proofs and the utilization proofs, expenditure proof at all, it's the responsibility of the CSR committee. Preparation of CSR annual plan and ensuring that it is part of director's report. Now, effective 22nd January 2021, the CSR committee constitution is optional if the CSR obligation of a company does not exceed 50 lakhs. So here in these cases, the board becomes responsible for the functions of CSR committee. Now, there is another amendment dated 20th September 22. The companies will still be required to constitute CSR committee if there is an unspent amount lying in their corporate social responsibility unspent account on ongoing projects. Again, the next stakeholder is board of directors, responsibility of the board. So while the CSR committee recommends does everything that we just saw, the CSR committee is the responsibility of the board of directors. Then whatever CSR committee recommends, if the board agrees to it or maybe with certain changes, it can approve the CSR policy, approve the annual action plan. And again, just because there is a CSR committee, the board is not diluted. The responsibility of the board doesn't get diluted. So the board is still responsible for ensuring that CSR implementation is done as per the provisions of the law. Again, very important responsibility cast on the board to take note of the utilization certificate from the person responsible for financial management, or if there is a CFO in the organization. And in case of ongoing projects, to monitor the implementation of the project. As per the statutory obligation, the disclosure in board's report to be made, and filing of form CSR2 with the annual form AOC4. In case of foreign companies, the report on CSR is annexed with the balance sheet of the company. Now coming to treatment of unspent and surplus CSR amount. Again, there may be organizations when the CSR committee recommends and the board approves, still there may be a scenario where during the year, the CSR amount doesn't get utilized. The companies may not be able to find out enough projects to put into the CSR funds. So what is the treatment?
I think, Preeti, we can skip that. Maybe we'll cover the unspent as we go through the conversation, to the panel discussion. So, yeah.
Sure. Let's take this a little later.
Because it's quite technical and it'll need some time. So it's just a broad overview and we could then engage into the conversation. Yes.
Perfect. So, all right. Then let me just take this Schedule 7. I'm sure all of us would have read it. However, just to briefly touch upon it, the CSR activities are defined in Schedule 7, eradicating hunger, poverty, and I've briefly taken care, jotted these in the presentation. Eradicating hunger, poverty, malnutrition, promotion of education and employment, enhancing vocational skills, promoting gender equality for senior citizens, for women, for reducing the social inequalities, ensuring environmental sustainability, conservation of natural resources, etc., protection of national heritage, art, culture, for the benefit of armed forces veterans, war widows, their dependents, their central paramilitary forces or central armed police forces, their dependents, their widows. Training to promote rural sports. Now, the intention of the government is to promote sports, all kinds of sports. And for example, the yoga is being made mandatory in all the government schools and all. So the training to promote rural sports, Paralympic sports, Olympic sports, contribution to the Prime Minister National Relief Fund. That's for the companies who are unable to find anything or who want to live a simple life at the end of the just before the close of the year. They put the entire amount in the Prime Minister National Relief Fund and get a certificate and are happy about it. The best part is at least they are compliant with the law. Contribution to incubators or R&D projects in the field of science, technology, medicine funded by central governments, state government, etc. Then universities, Ministry of Ayush, Electronics, DRDO, CSIR, Atomic Energy Department, IITs, national laboratories, etc. Rural development projects, again, just to bring the rural India up. The intention is to do CSR in rural areas so that they try and come a little ahead of their time. Slum area development, again, these slums which are notified as slums, not that 10 jugis in a cluster and then they start calling themselves as slums. No, the slums identified to be slums by the government. Disaster management, including relief, rehabilitation, and construction activities. So these are this Schedule 7, as all of us know, this is to be read so broadly. The intention is not just to, for example, if we write eradicating hunger, it's not about making people eat food. However, it has to be read in a broader purview. Disaster, and there may be scenarios, for example, like I said, the COVID thing was included as an exception as a CSR activity. So again, government has the power or the authority to bring in or add on to the activities which may be covered in the purview of the CSR. I think the remaining slides I can take once. So once we go ahead, I'll start the slideshow again. Anything, Sumit, you would like me to add on to this?
Yeah, no, this is good as an overview, Preeti. And what I'd just like to sort of add is that in Schedule 7 is very important from two perspectives. One, it lays down the areas where companies are required to spend. And as Preeti said, it is to be interpreted broadly that these are the areas, because CSR can be done only for activities mentioned in Schedule 7 and not outside. However, Schedule 7 is to be interpreted broadly. That is one key theme I will take away. And second is that there are a few institutions mentioned in Schedule 7, government institutions like PM CARES Fund, PM National Relief Fund, Swachh Bharat Kosh, the Clean Ganga Fund, etc. They are very, very important. Yes, Preeti, you're saying something on this?
You're right in saying that. So apart from the PM National Relief Fund and PM CARES Fund, there are two other funds defined, Swachh Bharat Kosh and Clean Ganga Fund. And other funds, so it categorically mentions any other fund established or set up by central government for socio-economic development of the country. So these are like
Right.
included in that.
And why they assume importance is because when as we go through the discussion, when the unspent amounts are to be deposited in a fund of Schedule 7, these are the 4 funds which mean, and I'm sure panelists will talk more about that unspent amounts to be given in these 4 funds until a new special fund under CSR or under Section 135 gets notified. So these are the funds. But anyways, we'll have panelists discuss more on that. So thank you, Preeti, for the opening icebreaker overview. Of course, we'll get more deep dive. We'll get more into the nitty-gritties later. Before we do that, I just want to run an opening poll. And here I'll launch the poll. Okay, so how are you associated with CSR? All people who are attending, in the sense, is your organization required to spend on CSR? That's why you're interested, or are you a consulting organization or a professional? Are you an academic? From an academic perspective, you're attending this, or are you an NGO or implementing agency, therefore accepting CSR, or anything else? Take 10 more seconds and we can get the responses. It will give a great good perspective to the panelists, as to what is the color of the audience, profile of the audience. When I say color of the audience, the complexion of the audience who's attending, so that they can sort of ease themselves accordingly and understand. Yes, so I see the first answer is leading. People are required to spend on CSR, and that's coming as a majority. All right. Okay, I'll take 5 seconds more and then end the poll. Okay, so shall I end the poll, because every time I try ending, more people are responding. But anyways, in the interest of time, let me end the poll and share results. So 56% people say they are required to spend on CSR. So very happy to get this statistic. And of course, then all the other are 10-15% each: consulting, academic perspective, implementation agency or NGO, and others. All right. Okay. So now over to Mr. Ravinder Singh. While Preeti has given a great overview of the legal provisions of Section 135 and the rules, etc., we would like to hear from you the practical aspects. How is your company implementing CSR? How are you implementing CSR? What is CSR outside the books and onto the streets? We would like to hear from you, Mr. Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Sumit, and thank you, Preeti, for setting the contest. And good to note that we have many or majority of the participants coming from the same background as I am. So that will make my life easy, or rather, I'll be happy to share my experience with all of you. And I'm sure that you'll be taking away something from what we are practicing here in MARELLI. So Sumit, if you may allow, I'll just run my presentation, and
Picture speaks more than 1,000 words, so please show whatever you want to show.
Yes. Give me. You can see my screen.
Yes, you could put it in the screen. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so many of the participants today, they may not be knowing MARELLI, what MARELLI is. So I'll quickly take you through the what MARELLI is, so that they can relate, and what we are doing, and what all we are, how we are creating this CSR impact over the society. So let me put it on hide. Yeah. So MARELLI is a global automotive company, and it is 100 years old company. When I say global, you can see the presence of MARELLI across the globe. And it is in India, this is the portion where I'm referring to. So you can see a lot of presence here in India. Other than India, Asia Pacific, Americas, and Europe, we are all over the world. These are the areas we are operating into. So we are into automotive lighting, vehicle electrification, electronic system, powertrain, ride dynamics, green technology system, and motorsports. So these are the major business segments we operate into. And these are the OEMs for which we work. So you name it and it is there, be it Maruti Suzuki or Bajaj, or from there to Tesla and to BMW. So all across the board, we are associated with the OEMs. This is how our presence here in India, with the head count of 6,100 to be more precise, and we have around 18 plants and 2 R&D centers here in India. In India, these are the majorly the product portfolio which we manufacture here. It is the more or less covering the same business units which I just mentioned. Jumping on the CSR framework. So with the background of India operations, we generate some CSR funds, and this is the deployment, framework we follow here in MARELLI. The 4 major focus areas: education, skill development, women health and safety, and then disaster relief and volunteering. So these are the main focus areas we worked on, we work in, and we have, different partners who are associated with us into, creating this impact over the society and getting the funds implemented on the field in respective focus areas. How we do it, the disbursement process, how we follow. So as Preeti mentioned, it starts with the board. So we get a board approval. In parallel, we start working with our partners for proposal. Once both these items are ready with us, it goes to the CSR committee. And then CSR committee starts working with the different partners. And from there, we create a disbursement after reviewing the proposal from each partner, and so that we are implementing the initiatives or interventions successfully and purposefully. Taking you on which areas and how we are doing it. So if it to start with education, so you can see we are into different segment of education. So we are into technological intervention in education, through which we are working with government schools, and we are also providing scholarships to the students, and it is the students scholarship to the students who are in lower classes. Apart from that, we are also working with the students who are underprivileged but they want to study, and we are providing scholarship for them for higher studies as well. In this process, we are also trying to support the teaching staff through various means. This is the digital education area. So this is a very unique initiative which we are working on. We call it World on Wheel. So we have developed this bus in collaboration with HP and SARD, our partner. And in this bus, this is the inside of the bus. So it is a classroom which has been created inside the bus. And this bus goes to various schools, and we create opportunity to the students who don't have regular access to get into a higher digital education. So this bus help these students to get acquainted to the what is required to be learned to remain in line with today's requirement of digitization and technical learning. This is another segment, which is, infrastructure for education. So we do two type of this thing. One is if because of some disaster, if some school is damaged, so we go there and we, help the school to rebuild the building. So this is one initiative which I'm sharing, which we did in Himachal Pradesh, Mandi. And this is another, initiative which I'm sharing. This is interior of Haryana. So a school which is, run by Sir Martin Howard, and he and his wife, he's no more now. His wife is running this school along with the, other committee members. So we developed this school, and we are regularly, working with this school to fetch them the required classroom furniture, classroom maintenance, and again the, digitization of college library and computer lab, etc. This is skill development, which we do. And in the skill development, we work with Don Bosco, through which we have set up a different, we have helped them to develop the infrastructure of the institute. Along with that, the smart classrooms and the, this is helping the students there for getting the technical training on various aspects. Sorry. This is another initiative which is very near to our heart, and this we are doing for social and economic rehabilitation for acid attack victims. And we are helping them to provide legal support. We are helping them to start rebuilding their career once they're out of the trauma. So this is another initiative which we are doing. Disaster relief, as we all know that in India it is very common, and as and when there is some problem, we are getting into that area through our partners and implementing this initiative. This is something very unique during the last 2 years, because all of us were under lockdown, and we were not getting opportunity to, schools were closed down, and so we found the opportunity of getting into the COVID response, COVID-19 response, and we installed one oxygen plant in ICMR in New Delhi. So this is another initiative during COVID times. We worked with the ENY Foundation and placed this 100-bed hospital in New Delhi. Similar on the same lines, we worked with the different hospitals and provided them the oxygen concentrators and oximeters and all that stuff, which was a requirement of that time, because people were not getting enough support, and we pitched into that area, and we worked with almost 24 hospitals and provided them the ventilators, and we got them imported from Japan and other part of the world, and we supplied it to the different hospitals. This is another initiative on women's safety. So we worked with Haryana Police to develop some technological intervention at the women police station in Manesar. This is how we are running our CSR volunteering campaign in different areas. So we invite our employees to be part of different groups like Creator, Mentor, Protector, and Greenie. And each of these groups, they work in different areas. The Creator, they work on infrastructure. mentor. They are employees. They get into the schools and the vocational institutes and share their knowledge to the students there. Health and sanitation, as I just mentioned, and greeny is the tree plantation into the school, green belt development and public park development. So all these areas we looked into. These are some of the pictures which we have taken through employee volunteering on environment and tree plantation drive. And this is the total impact which we could create through our initiative, which I just mentioned. Alone in the year 2022, we could impact 25,000 lives with the help of our 7 partners who are working with us. So with this, Sumit, it gives me, a lot of happiness to say that, yes, I think we are doing our bit through whatever is available, getting available to us from our funds. So I think this is what I wanted to share with all the participants, and I'll be more than happy to take any comment.
Yeah, this is amazing. I must compliment, because if all the companies on whom CSR is applicable were to do their bit, the world would be different. So,
Yeah.
because
No, I would say, reading section 135 is a different thing. Reading schedule 7 is another thing. Hunger, poverty, education, etc. But, looking at what, Mr. Singh, you are doing at your company, this is, in the first half, I was very impressed with the global reach and the brands that you are serving and such a large footprint that you have as a company. But I was even more impressed by, how you are really, making a difference in the lives through the CSR, how you are taking it so seriously, putting a lot of resources behind your interventions and impacting 25,000 lives alone in 2022. I'm sure the contribution would be running into crores, to be able to impact those lives and to be able to allocate those kind of funds, and really following it in letter and in spirit is commendable. Not just donating to the funds established, just as a compliance, but really following it in the spirit and with heart to make a difference. This is really, really commendable. My respect for your company, MARELLI, Mr. Singh, has only increased after your presentation. So thank you very much for all the good job that all of you are doing.
Thank you, Sumit. Just one point before we move to Chandan. So as you rightly said, in MARELLI, we really live the CSR activities. When I say live, means every month, irrespective of we don't have our other reviews, we make it a point that we are having a CSR review every month.
So nice, so nice. No, it can, from your presentation, the ethos and the vibes are coming in. It was very heartwarming to see. And, one thing which really caught my attention, and I was having an offline discussion with Mr. Singh earlier also when I was inviting, and he shared with me, the world on wheels, the bus that is there, which has been, from the interiors, it has been rechristened like a classroom. And Mr. Singh was sharing with me, allow me to share, Mr. Singh, that he was sharing that the bus, there's a proper charter of that bus where every day the bus would come to their plant, and there's a schedule that one day they would go to one village, and the people from that village will sort of, in some organized way, benefit on that day of education. On the other day, that bus will go to some other village and benefit the children of that village for the computer education. So, and they have recruited teachers to teach within the bus, and the drivers and the conductors and the teachers and the whole system. So really kudos, very innovative and impacting the lives. So yes, kudos.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving over to our third panelist, I think we've got the right blend of law and the practical CSR now. Chandan is more technical. So let's. I'll ask most difficult questions to Chandan. From the law. But okay, I'll still start with an easy one, Chandan. what are the several disclosures required? So, like Mr. Singh shared, so many things that are being done, and it was a beautiful presentation. But from a legal standpoint, what are the several disclosures required by a company to make for CSR so that the entire reporting can be done properly?
Yeah, thank you, Sumit, for having me in now. And before I actually go to the disclosures, I really want to congratulate Ravinder ji and MARELLI India for the impact they've been making. So this actually encourages us not to only guide and advise our companies, our client companies on the legal side, but also on the practical side because of the impact it can make. So great, Ravinder ji, because it's not so. What I could get from your presentation is that you have actually touched upon all the areas, be it healthcare or education or environment safety, everything. So great, great to see that. Now coming to your question, Sumit. See, basically CSR has been made as a board-driven process. However, certain responsibilities has been given on the companies. So there are majorly 4 disclosures which every company has to make on different portals or different areas. So first is like the website disclosure. So every company has to publish on its website the CSR policy, the composition of its CSR committee, and the various projects which the company is undergoing under the CSR. So as per Rule 9 of CSR rules, these 3 were the major disclosures which a company had to make. However, there is a latest amendment in Annexure 2 to the board report which talks about the CSR things, and therein one important point has been added which talks about web link of impact assessment of the company. So which means if a company is falling within the category of impact assessment, then also that impact assessment has to be published on the website, and a web link of the same has to be given in Annexure 2. So this is with respect to the website disclosures. Then in the financial statements, every company has to mention, it's a brief disclosure in the financial statements, and it is majorly on the CSR obligation, how much amount a company is required to spend on the CSR activities, how much amount has been spent, any surplus or any set off. So this is the disclosure which is given in the financial statements, more on the financial side only. Thirdly, every company has to give an annexure to as a CSR annexure to the board report. So earlier it was a detailed one. However, recently after the launch of Form CSR2, which I'll be talking after this, this form has been simplified to an extent that the project-wise details which were earlier required to be mentioned in that annexure have now been dispensed with, because now the company has to mention those project-wise details in the form CSR2. So after the board report, now the fourth one is the MCA. On the MCA portal, a company has to file form CSR2. So this has been launched with effect from February 2022, this year only. And for the first time, it was required to be filed for financial year 2021. So this is a detailed form, this CSR2. It talks about your CSR composition, your CSR obligation. So I'll run past this CSR2 form in the times to come. So this form also talks about any unspent amount, any excess amount, the entire obligation, and how a company has actually gone through that. So all in all, 4 major disclosures a company has to make under the CSR provisions.
Understand. Thank you, Chandan. So what we hear is the disclosure on the website, disclosure in the board's report, disclosure in the MCA filing, disclosure in the financials. So very nicely summed up, the 4 disclosures that are required for all the good work that companies do in CSR. Okay, coming to Preeti once again. Preeti, you've been dealing with a lot of boards and committees in your career, both as an in-house company secretary initially, and then even as eMinds Legal. You've been advising and holding board meetings for clients. So what is, how do you see, CSR in boardrooms? What are the several roles and responsibilities of board in CSR and the CSR committees? Is it tick in the box? Is it only documentation, or is it, what kind of discussions do happen over there?
It depends on company to company. It's a very genuine question, frankly. Needs to be discussed. Most of us, the people participating today, the panelists here, they would have different answers to this question. Like we heard Mr. Singh today, how seriously they are, considering CSR as their, it's a genuine obligation on them. And rather than using the word obligation, they take it as their responsibility. So corporate social responsibility, they're taking it really seriously. However, there are companies who, despite making profits and despite falling into this, they would say, oh, we have to make contribution to the CSR. So, it's a mix of everything when we enter the boardrooms and discuss the CSR provisions. Initially, when I started my presentation and when we were discussing about Schedule 7, I said that there are organizations which genuinely consider this as an obligation, and this just before the end of the financial year, with heavy heart, they would contribute to the Prime Minister National Relief Fund, and then they're done with that. So they're happy receiving a certificate. There are small organizations, even private limited companies, who so Mr. Singh's company is a huge company, as we just saw. The CSR spend would also be huge. However, there are companies who are supposed to spend 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs. Still, they have the seriousness, to identify the projects, or they take pains in, if they think they're spending 5 lakh on a project, they would take a pain in understanding the need. They would take a pain in analyzing that they are making some impact in the society. So in the boardroom, like you asked me, Sumit, it's a mix of all worlds. To understand, like, I've seen multinational companies, I interact with their boards as consultant, and at times I'm also kind of invited in their board meetings, maybe on these topics. So there also I see, despite having all kind of infrastructure in thousands of employees, it becomes very difficult for them to kind of dedicate 2 people, 3 people to handle the CSR obligations. But then again, from company to company, from board to board, it's like an individual handwriting. Everybody writes in his own way, and every company takes these compliances in their own way.
Understand. Sure. No, that's fair enough. And every board and every committee and every individual is different. But what we get is that essentially the board approves the overall amount to be spent, as we saw in Mr. Singh's slide also. And then of course, and an overall probably a directional approach of which areas to spend. And then the CSR committee would look at the partner selection and which projects to spend on and resources and all the nitty-gritties of the implementation that would be left to the committees, for sure. Mr. Singh, back to you. Now, with all the good work that you're doing, how do you plan for these projects? I saw, yes, there are few partners, but first of all, what kind of resources do you have internally to like, what is the planning process? How do you plan? How do you put these to execution? And how do you then monitor? Because at this scale, how do you monitor that the funds are actually going in the right direction? Of course, there are certain reportings, but broadly, what is your process?
See, Sumit, I think you might have noted in my presentation, I said that we have an internal committee, right? So that internal committee, we meet every month. And then we have a dedicated manager who has the responsibility of managing the entire framework, CSR framework. So she is 100% on CSR, and she will get in touch with all the partners on regular basis, weekly basis, daily basis. She'll keep on going on the projects where we are, whether it is a one-off project or running project. She will involve the volunteers, and the volunteers would be more than happy to go along with her. So this is how we keep the partners warm and engaged throughout the process. So coming back to the disbursement part, as I said that once we have a proposal from our partner, the internal committee review that proposal thoroughly and decide that what is the best contribution to be decided for this initiative. And basis that, we give a confirmation to the partner that this is what we are going to contribute, and this is going to be the payment release schedule. So we decide everything in advance, so that the partner or the initiative which is going on at any specific site, they can also plan their things in a better way. If they want to get intervention from some other companies, they are more than happy. So we don't believe in exclusivity or something like that. We are more than happy that if some big company like ENY Foundation, as I mentioned in one of my initiatives, if they are working on something, and if we get in touch with ENY or somebody, and they just tell us that, okay, there's a scope if you want to pitch in, so we don't mind. Same way, if we are doing any project, and if some other small company want to pitch in, more than happy.
Understand. Nice. So now, Chandan, as I promised that I'll ask you the most technical questions, and there's something which is very difficult for me as well, is the section 198. So the CSR expenditure, how do you calculate the CSR expenditure? It's easy to say 2% of the average annual net profits of the last 3 years. That everybody understands. It's the opening line of section 135. But how are those profits calculated? What are the, at a high level? I know it's a 1 hour discussion in itself, but still, if you could very quickly share your experience of how is that profit calculated, and the 2% of which is required to be spent?
So that's a great question, Sumit. There are a lot of deliberations with respect to calculation of net profits. And in fact, earlier, just to give you a brief background, earlier it was only with respect to when we had to calculate the average net profits and the actual spend, then only provisions of section 198 were applicable. While for the eligibility side, it was as if your normal profit. However, they've come up with amendment through Companies Amendment Act 2017, which came in 2018. Now, for eligibility point of view, also your profits as per 198 shall be the base. So therefore, 198 is very much applicable. The basic criteria for section 198 is to find out your operational profits. So therefore, there have been certain adjustments which have been given in section 198 to add back certain things and to deduct certain things which have already been there. So I'll share one Excel which we actually use for our clients, which can be very helpful for companies to calculate their profits under 198. Allow me to share my screen, please.
Yeah. Very, very briefly, Chandan, if you could just share quickly.
Yeah, I hope this is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. So in 198, we take profit after tax as the base, and there have been certain items which should form part of profit, and which means if they've not been included in the profits, then they have to be added in the profits, and certain items which, if added, had to be deducted. For example, bounties and subsidies. So these are the things basically which are given in 198. So any bounties or subsidies received from government have to be made part of profit. So that cannot be excluded if these are not added. Then certain items which should not form part of your profit are like profit by way of premium on shares or debentures. If you have received profit on sale of forfeited shares, profits of any capital nature from the sale of undertaking, sale of immovable property, then any change in the carrying amount of any asset or liability recognized in equity reserves, like revaluation reserve, for example, which has added up your profits, and then you have to deduct that from your profits because that's not an actual profit. any amount representing unrealized gains, notional gains, or revaluation of assets. So 3E and 3F are more or less on the same front. So these, if have been included in your profit, you have to deduct because these are not your regular operational profits. Now there are certain expenditures which you can make from your while calculating your profit, and certain expenditure which you have made, you have to add those back. So usual working charges, director's remuneration, bonus commission paid to the member of any company, staff, engineer, technician, tax notified by central government as being in the nature of a tax on excess or abnormal profits. So if there are any abnormal profits and any tax has been paid on that, so you can claim that as business expenditure also. Tax on business profits imposed for special reasons, interest on debentures issued by the company, interest on mortgages, interest on unsecured loans. See, majority of these items are already deducted while calculating the profits. However, the idea is that if those have not been deducted, so you can deduct that while calculating your profits. Expenses on repairs, outgoing, inclusive depreciation to the extent specified. Now 198(4)(L) is very important. It says excess of expenditure over income, which had arisen in computing the net profits in accordance with this section in any year insofar as such excess has not been deducted in any subsequent year, which means any accumulated losses which you have, you can deduct it here. So all previous accumulated losses can be claimed here under section 198 while calculating your profits. Any compensation damages to be paid in virtue of any legal liability, any sum paid by way of insurance against risk, so payment against insurance, debts considered bad and written off. So these are all business expenditure more or less, so these can be deducted. Now what cannot be deducted is your income tax and super tax. So income tax, one very important point here is generally what we do is we take our profit after tax from the balance, from the P&L of the company, and then whatever tax amount is mentioned there, we just add that back. However, it says income tax and super tax payable by the company under Income Tax Act. In case the income tax filed in your income tax return is different than the income tax mentioned in your P&L, then you have to consider income tax filed under Income Tax Act as per your ITR. Any compensation damages or payments made voluntarily, any voluntary payments cannot be claimed as expenditure. Loss of capital nature, including loss on sale of undertaking, and any change in carrying amount of any assets or liabilities recognized in equity reserves. So this is revaluation reserve again. So in case you have excess, then you have to deduct that, which I mentioned above. And in case you have shown losses out of revaluation, then you have to add those losses back. Now this is how you calculate your profits for 3 years. Then you aggregate those profits and then calculate average profits by dividing the aggregate by 3 and 2% of the same. This is how we calculate. So it is always advisable to have it in a Excel format or any similar format, so that it is always easier. For example, now I have to mention for 22-23 next year I have to calculate. I simply have to hide this and add one column, and it will automatically calculate. So I hope this is helpful by understanding this concept.
This is really helpful, Chandan. Thank you. It was quite technical, but I'm sure people would have been able to get the gist of it. And of course, the God lies in the details. So if you're calculating, calculate it thoroughly, subsection by subsection, or else you can seek professional help from Chandan if required from eMinds Legal. Okay. Coming to Preeti. Preeti, now we're running. It's already 1 o'clock, and it's been a very engaging conversation. Looks like we just started, and it's 1. We have a lot of questions coming in, which we will start in a moment. But before we do that, just few sort of pointed things from my side, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Now, Mr. Singh said that there are a lot of people who volunteer, the employees who volunteer. Now, what is your guess or your opinion? Why should I say guess? Can the expenditure incurred on those employees who volunteer, their salaries, their hourly costs, or all this their costs spent behind them, can those be claimed as a CSR expenditure?
No. because so if they have dedicated staff for doing the CSR activity, that can still be made a part of 5%, the administrative expenses, overheads. However, there are companies, just to add to what your question, there are organizations which mandate their employees to spend one day doing some social service or the CSR project. And in those cases, the cost of that one day per employee, that cannot be treated as a CSR expense.
Right, right. So what you say is specific dedicated resource, if you have who's in charge of CSR, that cost can be claimed as an administrative expense subject to maximum of 5% of the overall CSR thing. However, all these indirect costs, etc., cannot be.
Yes.
All right. And would you also, Preeti, like to talk about implementation agencies? Because Mr. Singh mentioned partner 1, partner 2, partner 3, etc. So several partners whom they work with. So who are those partners? Because we have representation in this webinar from some NGOs and implementation agencies as well. So who are those people? What are, what kind of requirements are there for them to accept CSR, etc., etc.?
Okay, so coming back to the law, that means, so there are companies which do CSR and implement it on their own, right? If they like I mentioned about companies who are passionate about doing their CSR on their own, but companies like MARELLI, which has got huge spend on CSR, of course, they need partners to work for and contribute in the CSR. Law defines implementation agencies. The implementation agency may be a Section 8 company. It may be a registered public trust or a registered society registered under 10, 12A and 80G of the Income Tax Act, which may be either established by the company singly or maybe in joining hands with other companies. Then another category of an implementation agency is a Section 8 company or a registered trust or a registered society established by central government or the state government. There may be an entity, defined as implementing agencies established under an act of parliament or a state legislature. The most important category for organizations is a Section 8 company, a registered public trust or a registered society, which have the 12A and 80G registrations and have an established track record of at least 3 years in undertaking similar activities of CSR. So these are certain, these are the defined implementing agencies under the law. Now, for example, there were questions raised as to, before the implementing agency came into force, the companies were doing the CSR on their own. And then the questions popped up that what happens to the projects that the companies directly undertook rather than going through the implementing agencies. If those are ongoing projects, the company can still continue with those projects on their own. The future projects may be run through the implementing agencies. The implementing agencies are also required to kind of register themselves with the MCA by filing Form CSR1. Yeah, Form CSR1, and then they can take up the CSR projects of the company.
Right. So what I think two things to remember or note here is that one, if you're choosing a partner, the partner or the implementation agency needs to have at least a track record of 3 years in implementing such
that's
projects.
An outside. If that's an
outside one. If you're not doing it on your own and if you're doing it through an NGO, ensure, because if these conditions are not met, you may be spending on CSR, but it may not be eligible, or counted towards CSR. So one, I think, look at the agency which has a track record of 3 years in doing similar activities, which falls under the definitions of a registered trust, either as a Section 8 company or a trust or a society, and having a 12A and a 80G registration. And most importantly, they have a CSR1 filed, and therefore a CSR certificate, whatever comes as an output of CSR1, they are able to share that number with you, that this is their CSR number. So these are the, I think, 3 important things before selecting an implementation agency. And before I move to Chandan,
I have to add 2 points here.
Yeah.
With the latest amendment which came in September 2022, So earlier it was only trusts and societies, etc., registered under Section 12A and 80G, which were eligible. Now, with this latest amendment, the registered public trust and registered societies under Section 1023C and clauses 4, 5, 6, and 7A of the Act, which are majorly the educational institutions, those have already also been covered. So the has been widened. One is that, and second is, there is always a pertinent question with respect to the track record of the entities. So we always talk about 3 years track record. However, in case a company establishes its own Section 8 company or a trust or society, then this requirement track record is not applicable. Of course, it cannot be. For example, on my company, if CSR becomes applicable now and now I establish another entity, it cannot have a track record. But yes, this registration under 12A and 80G would be required, and the filing of CSR would be required.
Understand. No, thanks for that addition. Preeti, one very small related question, and that's why I come back to you. Whether a company can disburse funds to the implementation agency as a corpus, for example, donating 1 crore or 50 lakhs to an agency and then, done with the obligation, or is there anything more required?
No, of course not, because the intention of setting up implementation agency is to have an agency of whose work you can monitor as a company. So it's just not you are putting in funds and then close your eyes. That's not allowed. We come back to the CSR committee. The utilization of the funds that are given to implementing agency for a particular project, if not single, multiple projects, and we need to obtain the utilization certificate from the implementation agency to ensure that the funds that you have given to the agency are being put to good use, the approved use, and there is a tracking mechanism of that.
Yeah,
it's not a government established fund where you just put in and you're not aware of the utilization. The companies need to ensure, and again, it's the responsibility of the implementing agency also to give a utilization certificate to the company.
Mr. Singh, very briefly, would you like to share your thoughts on the same area, on the deployment certificate or the utilization certificate?
No, I agree with Preeti. I think we following the same framework. So we are not putting the entire corpus into one. So that's the reason we are having multiple partners. And with the help of the dedicated staff for CSR, we always, monitor the implementation and ask for, the certificate towards the end, deployment certificate.
Understand. Perfect. So good. I think till now we have covered what is CSR, applicability, eligibility, the committees, board, CSR policies, CSR expenditure, how to calculate the profits, the practical experience of Mr. Singh in implementing CSR programs, the resources required, the reporting, monitoring, implementation agencies, registrations, track records, etc., etc. Now, with all this, question to Chandan. Chandan, now a company with all good intentions, they may have great intentions to spend CSR, but they may not be able to, spend it for some reason in say April to March, the financial year. So what happens to the unspent amount? Suppose a company was supposed to spend 1 crore by 31st March, and they are not able to spend it. So what happens to that unspent amount after 31st of March as per law?
So Sumit, law has very clearly spelled out what would be the what would a company need to do in case of unspent account. So subsection 5 and subsection 6 of section 135 talks about that. So there could be two scenarios. One is companies having some ongoing projects, and or there could be other than ongoing projects, like non-ongoing projects. So in case of ongoing projects, section 135 subsection 6 says that firstly, what is ongoing projects? So which and a project which goes beyond the financial year and including the financial year in which it has started, plus it can go up to 3 more financial years. So for example, if you've started any project in 22-23, so 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26. So this can go until that, and there could be a non-ongoing projects also. So in case of ongoing projects, you have to actually very judiciously disburse the amount to your implementing agencies, because the law says for any unspent amount by 30th of April, a company has to open an unspent CSR account for that financial year and has to deposit the entire unspent amount in that CSR unspent account. So and that can be utilized in a further period of 3 years. So every year, a company has to open an unspent CSR account in case there is any unspent amount, and then which means it goes financial year wise. Now, in case of non-ongoing projects, if the money is not spent by 31st of March, the only option which is left with the company is to deposit or transfer that unspent amount to a fund mentioned in Schedule 7. So for now, 4 funds are mentioned, as Preeti also covered in her presentation: Prime Minister National Relief Fund, PM Cares Fund, Swachh Bharat Kosh, and Clean Ganga Fund. So in case government establishes any other fund, as of now, these are the 4 funds. So, which means in case of unspent amount has to be transferred to the fund, and in case of ongoing project, that has to be deposited in unspent CSR account by 30th day of April every year.
Understand. Thank you, Chandan. Now, Chandan, again, back to you. Would you like to touch upon very briefly, in 2 minutes, the provisions of CSR amendment rules to 2022? What are the key changes brought about by CSR amendment rules 2022?
Sure. There are some amendments. I'll just share my screen once again. Yeah. So the first change happened with respect to constitution of CSR committee, requirement of constitution of CSR committee in case there is any unspent amount left in the CSR account, CSR unspent account. Preeti has touched it in her presentation also, the requirements of constitution of CSR committee. So it was earlier dispensed with, which means in case your spending is less than 50 lakhs, you don't need to constitute CSR committee. However, by this amendment, the law has described that you still need the CSR committee, even if your spend is less than 50 lakhs, but you still.
Oh, there's a little bit of breakage, looks like. I think what Chandan was saying was, if you have an unspent amount, then still you need a CSR committee, even if your this year's spend is less than 50 lakhs. Chandan, are you there? No, looks like there's some network issue at his end. Okay, no issues. Anyways, we'll continue. Preeti, in the meantime, would you like to talk about the penalties of CSR? Because we have seen the law, the compliance, the practice, etc. So earlier there didn't used to be any penalties for sort of non-contribution to CSR. Are there now any penalties in the law if for non-compliance to CSR provisions?
Yes, of course. In the earlier regime, it was either comply or explain, and a lot of companies took advantage of that by just not contributing the applicable amount. However, giving reasons in the director's report and while filing to the MCA, saying that we have not been able to find out relevant projects or that way. So it was either comply or explain. However, now there are penalties. For example, we were like Chandan was mentioning about the unspent amount. So for non-compliance in transferring the unspent amount on company, the penalty is twice the unspent amount required to be transferred to any fund included in Schedule 7 or the unspent CSR account, as the case may be, or 1 crore rupees, whichever is less. So even if it is 1 crore rupees, it's a huge amount for any company. And for any officer in default, it's 1/10 of the unspent amount required to be transferred to these accounts, or 2 lakh rupees, whichever is less. And this is for every officer in default. In case of if we do not comply with any other provisions of the section or rules apart from this one, then the general penalty under section 450 will still be applicable. And again, in case you do not pay the penalty, again the provisions of section 454 of the Act 454 subsection 8 will be applicable.
Understand. So as I understand, to sum up, if you are not able to contribute towards the CSR activities by 31st of March, one, you will have to, if it's not an ongoing project, you will have to deposit it in the unspent CSR account within 6 months to the Schedule 7, to one of the Schedule 7 account what Chandan was mentioning, PM Care, PM National Relief Fund,
yes,
etc. within 6 months. And in case it's an ongoing project, then you have to put it in an unspent account and deploy that in 3 years. But Chandan, if the company is not able to do it by 31st March and they put it in the, and if they spend it after March, like for example, if they spend it in April or May or June, are they allowed to do that?
No, Sumit. The only option which is left with the company is to transfer it to any of those funds.
Understand. So they have to transfer it by 30th September. And if they are not able to transfer in by 30th September, then those penalties
will be applicable.
Right. And again, those will be over and above this requirement to transfer to those funds again.
Yeah, so
those will still be transferred. The amount will still need to be required to be transferred to these funds, and plus the penalty provisions.
Plus the penalty, yeah. So either either contribute by 31st March, or else transfer by 30th September and pay the penalties as well. So it's not that you're saving anything by paying the penalties. Penalties is on top of the contribution. Either you contribute or you pay to the Schedule 7 for non-ongoing project, or to an unspent CSR account for an ongoing project within 30 days, right? Understand. Chandan, I'm sorry you got cut. So, time is very short, but if in 2 minutes you could broadly speak about the 2-3 key provisions of CSR amendment rules.
Yeah. So Sumit, first I have already discussed in constitution of CSR committee in case there is a unspent amount left. Second is the omission of Rule 3 sub Rule 2. So this rule earlier talked about carrying on your CSR committee and complying with the provisions for a period of 3 years. From the time these provisions are no more applicable. For example, you are no more eligible under Section 135. You still need to carry on your committee. So this amendment was made in the section earlier. However, this was yet to be made in the rule. Now they have omitted in the rule also. So now it is only the preceding financial year which we have to see. The third is with respect to CSR implementation, the implementing agency, which I mentioned earlier. This has included Section 1023C entities, which are majorly the educational institutions and trusts. And fourth one is with respect to CSR reporting. In fact, it is not about CSR reporting. This is about impact assessment. This is under CSR reporting rule, so therefore it is coming under that. So earlier, for impact assessment cost, up to 5% of the overall CSR expenditure or 50 lakhs, whichever is lower, was allowed as a cost which can be claimed as CSR expenditure. If you see, the impact assessment was anyways applicable on 10 crore or more. So 5% of 10 crore comes to 50 lakhs. So earlier the law says 50 lakhs or 50 lakhs, whichever is less. So they have now changed it. So 50 lakhs is mentioned as a cap now. So it is like 2% or 50 lakhs, whichever is higher. So basically the window now is 20 lakhs to 50 lakhs towards your impact assessment cost, which can be claimed as a CSR expenditure. The final major amendment is with respect to change in Annexure 2. So in this Annexure 2, the details about projects, etc. have been dispensed with because they have now come up with Form CSR 2. Lastly, in CSR 1, so this has been revised to give impact of Section 1023C education institution, which was earlier not coming there. So these were the major amendments which came up in September 2022.
Understand. I must also compliment Chandan the way you showed the Excel of 198 and this impact assessment, the previous and the new and the changes. looks like, good formats being prepared by eMinds Legal, shows the professionalism, how you're advising your clients. So compliments for that as well. Because one is the practitioners like Mr. Singh, who are doing great work, and also is contributing, to the ecosystem, is a consultants who are also on the today's webinar, and the two panelists between Preeti and Chandan, who are advising the clients in the right way, in the ethical way, what the law says, what the spirit is, etc., etc. So kudos to both Preeti and you. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the webinar. I'll give a voice rest to the panelists and ask my team to share a little bit about Complinity, who has hosted this webinar, and then we'll take the Q&A. There are, by the way, many questions which have come up. So please be prepared. Please have a glass of water, all the panelists. I'll do a rapid fire question for 10 seconds per question. You have to quickly rapid fire answer. But my team, if I can ask my team to just display about what Complinity is for the benefit of everyone.
Welcome to Complinity Technologies. Complinity is India's leading governance, risk and compliance software helping companies to manage their compliance, contracts, litigation, legal updates, inter-financial controls and more. Complinity is a one-stop shop for all GRC needs. With our proprietary 12 GRC modules and real-time legal updates on 2,000 plus laws and 24,000 plus compliances. All in an integrated platform that is easy to use with automated alerts and risk management capabilities. Is why compliance managers, general counsels and chief financial officers choose Complinity every time. Join the most innovative and prestigious brands that use Complinity. Automating your compliance management, request a demo at complinity.com.
Right. Thank you, team, for showing that short 30-second video commercial. Now just a poll, sort of a poll for Complinity. Anyone who would like to get a demo of Complinity compliance software, which can help you manage all the compliances of 2,000 plus laws and 25,000 plus compliances, please indicate in the Q&A so that my team can get back to you in days to come. Complinity, as you are feeling it, Complinity, as I said, is India's leading compliance software, and companies like Max Hospital, Artemis Hospital, Oberoi 5-star Properties, Yes Bank, Amara Raja, group, Averance Battery, Jai Bharat Maruti, across different industries, pharma companies, NBFC, housing finance, insurance companies, many more are using the tool, 700 plus companies. So anyone who would like to go for a demo, please indicate your option and my team will contact you. Okay, while I leave the poll open for some time for people to respond, we'll start with the Q&A now. So now there are many questions which have come up. So I encourage now, it will be difficult for me to now point out on the questions. The panelists, you can see the questions in the Q&A box as well. So if you would like to answer anything, pick up any question, answer, and then press the button answer live so that the question disappears from my screen as well. Okay, by the way, my team has also given a chat box that there are these YouTube channel which we have. Excerpts from this webinar will be uploaded on the YouTube channels as well in days to come. Please click the link right now and just press on the bell icon on your subscribe and press the double bell icon, because the moment the video is uploaded, you will be notified then in that case. Please also follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. Please keep doing that so that you get all the updates from our side for future webinars. We bring all these webinars on a monthly basis now and share all the collaterals and presentations and all that on these social media. Okay. I also end the poll and share the results. So a good 33% have said that they would like to see Complinity. So some work for my team, please note, and you can approach these people. Okay, now this called permission marketing, right? So start a permission, you're interested. Thanks, our team will get back to you. Now coming to the question, okay, and anybody who would like to answer between Chandan, Preeti, and Mr. Singh, please immediately you can say so that I can go on to the next question. And if you want to pick up any question from between, just pick it up, answer live so that it disappears from us. Now, can a private company volunteer to do CSR activities? That means if it's not applicable on it, but if it wants to do CSR, what compliance do they need to follow? Then we need to mention that do we need to mention that in MGD 7?
It's a voluntary act. If a company wants to do some good act, please do it. Go ahead. However, since it's voluntary, the documentation part of the law is not applicable. Again, if I understand this question correctly, however, just a little twist to it, if you as a private limited company want to be an implementing agency or support any other company as a implementing agency, then the criteria for being an implementing agency needs to be fulfilled. As a private limited company, then you cannot do that.
Okay. So, next question. Donation to Prime Minister National Relief Fund as per Schedule 7 are notified for 100% deduction under 80G. Is that right?
What is the question here?
The question is, if one makes a CSR contribution to Prime Minister National Relief Fund, is it 100% deductible under Section 80G?
So this does not relate to Companies Act though. I mean, 80G is under Income Tax Act. But if anything is transferred to Prime Minister Relief Fund, that can be claimed as 100% CSR expenditure.
Yeah. So the point is, you'll get a credit for 100% CSR expenditure, and the deduction that is there in 80G, I think, is it 50% or 100%? Then you can please check once more.
The income tax provisions for that.
As per the income tax provision, but you'll get 100% credit of that amount as a CSR expenditure. Yes. Please share a PPT. It's a very nice question, very honest confession. Please share a PPT. I cannot take a screenshot at the time of presentation. So no problem. Please subscribe, Sheetal, to the YouTube channel. You'll get the excerpts from the webinar. All right. Rima says, we are a small company with 50 employees. Can we have employees representing the CSR committee instead of directors?
So let me take that. Law does not provide any such exemption. Even if it's a small company, it's a company registered under the Companies Act, and it's mandatory to have 2 directors as committee members.
Right. Neha has written a very, very long question, so it will take me a lot of time to read and understand. So if any panelists can sort of read an answer or type the answer or address it, in the meantime, I'll take shorter questions. Construction of roads is in industrial area to get access from the main road wherein the plant of the spender is also located. Can it be treated? It's a very good question.
It's a very interesting question.
It can be covered under rural development. Yeah.
It can be, Chandan, but it's debatable. So if only that industry is located in that particular area and the road only leads to that factory, then no, because it is for their own business and for their own employees. However, if that road supports other factories and other units situated all across that road, then it may still be covered.
Yeah.
This is like combination of 2 things. One is your local area preference, right? And second is rural development. If you are preferring your local area, otherwise your development of your local area, but not only specific to your industry, a road is developed only to give access to your industry, then it would not be covered. But if it is for the general benefit, then it can. Yes.
Yeah. So companies cannot take advantage of CSR. I've seen or heard or clients have asked that company running its own school through a foundation and donating everything to its own school, and the school is taking fees also. So then, just because the school is a society or a trust, it doesn't mean that this will qualify as a CSR expenditure. And similarly, expenditure only for the employees or expenditure for the company's branding purposes, etc., cannot be taken as CSR. If branding is collateral, like for example, MARELLI, Mr. Singh said, MARELLI's branding would have gone 1 notch higher in the eyes of the hundreds of participants today. That's a collateral benefit, that is okay. But for the purpose of branding, if any amount is spent, that is not eligible for CSR. All right.
Yeah. So I'll take Neha's question.
Yes,
Neha Basin has asked that in previous year company profit was above 5 crore, and with all CSR related compliances, current year they earned a profit of 2 crore, which is less than the eligibility. So does the company still need to do the CSR compliances? Also, what about CSR committee formed last year? Will it still exist or demolished? automatically. Don't demolish it, please. What if next year again their profit crosses the limit of 5 crores? So Neha, if so this is as per the recent amendment that came in September. The eligibility is to be checked on the basis of immediately preceding financial year. Therefore, if in the current year your eligibility criteria is not being met, then you do not need to do the CSR compliance. However, if the company foresees that the company might again have profits next year or so, it can still continue maintaining the CSR committee so that the board does not take the trouble of forming it again. So till last year it was applicable. If you feel that next year again the company will start making profits and all and it will fall into the criteria, it is recommended that you may still continue. It doesn't get demolished automatically. Since it's a board committee, the board has to take an action any which ways.
All right. Vijay says if a company hires apprentices to assist them in CSR expenditure and admin staff, what about the stipend and salary? So I think that can be covered within 5% in case somebody is directly contributing towards CSR. Right. There's a requirement when doing the CSR through third party, having an established track record of 3 years in undertaking similar activities. Is similar activities defined? Also 3 years means continuous 3 years, or it can be any 3 years since the date of formation? It's a good question.
It's a good question. The law hasn't defined, a law has just mentioned that established track record of 3 years. Nowhere it is mentioned that it should be a continuous track record. In similar activities would mean, you can identify that the implementing agency. So if you want to contribute in education and the implementing agency only has a sanitation or some other related, experience and not the education related. So that means you can make out that it's not the similar experience. It may have a 10-year track record in sanitation, but not a single-year track record in education. So it needs
also
to be found out. Yeah. Yes.
So I was saying also your 12A and 80G certificates would also mention what all activities you would be undertaking. So those activities now you want to take through CSR. So that will show whether you were already earlier taking the similar activities or not.
Yeah, I would say 12A and 80G does not need to have a 3-year, certification of 12A 80G. But as long as the NGO is operating in that area, may not be taking CSR fund, but doing some public charitable activities in certain areas of Schedule 7. And now it is accepting after 12A 80G and all the registrations, CSR funds in those domains. Right. Okay, question law versus MARELLI. Somebody noticed that in MARELLI's case, Mr. Singh is taking board approval first and CSR committee approval later. However, ideally, Jayesh notes that shouldn't the CSR committee first see what is to be done and then propose to the board? Anybody on that? Preeti or?
So it may be a presentation, you as a measure of presentation. Of course, it's board's approval first. Maybe the presentation has been made in a way to depict that here is the board and here is the implementing agency or the partners, and the CSR committee takes cognizance of everything. However, the board is at the apex to establish the CSR committee. Then the CSR committee recommends to the board, and then the board approves that expense. So I remember Mr. Singh mentioning categorically that parallelly they work with the partners, just to save time and effort. So however, the process, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Singh, you would be following the process as laid in the law, committee recommending, the board approving, and the partner supporting you for that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Maybe I'm not good at presenting it, the PPT part, but maybe I'll correct it. Yeah.
No, Mr. Singh, it's not about good or bad. It's about, when there are lawyers behind the screen, they will catch, because the law says A to B, B to A, things like that. But of course, CSR is half law and half spirit, I would say. So the spirit all have to be good. Okay, so a few questions for you, Mr. Singh now. How to select a reliable partner or an NGO, and how to assess or review the activities done by them?
So I think in the answers to various questions, we have already noted that track record and registration and all that stuff has to be there. So that is going to establish the positivity of that partner. So that is must. Second is that I'll give you more practicality point of view for this. You need to have some level of working confidence with the partner, right? Meaning thereby, if you are a very small company and if you start interacting with very big partner, I think then you'll not be able to gel with their work culture, their work style. So you need to find out the partner who can match with your wavelength, right? Considering if you have a specific fund size, you can go for a partner who can help you handle that type of fund size,
Right.
So that's the practical part of it.
Right. And how do you encourage, Mr. Singh, how do you encourage the employee participation? These are all questions from the audience. How do you encourage employee participation? And also, how are your reviews done in MARELLI on CSR? And how are you maintaining the documentation, all of that?
See, employee participation, we are very high on employee engagement. So we have an employee engagement committee at each of our, legal site. So that employee engagement committee, they, irrespective of their day-to-day activities, they'll keep on working on that. We, release our employee engagement calendar every year, and then we seriously follow that on month. We have an employee communication meeting every month in which we release the outcome of that employee engagement activities and who all are getting engaged, what they have done, and so that encourage other employees to come forward and be part of those programs. On review, as I said that we are very religiously we do it, and the internal committee, we meet every month, and the person who has been put as dedicated resource to this, that person has the responsibility to work hand in hand very closely with the partners, keep on asking, tracking the performance of the each project, whether it is one time or ongoing, and keep on educating them also that they have to, at the end of the day, they have to submit a certificate also of completion, and that's how we do it.
Right. Sure. So I think I'm conscious of everyone's time. It's 1:38 by the watch, and although there are many more questions, it's very, if we answer, it'll be another 1 hour, and I'm sure this is lunch time for everyone as well, and everyone has got schedules and meetings after that. So what we will do, we will not leave these questions like that. What we will do, Preeti, if I may request you as a partner of eMinds Legal and as a esteemed panelist today, most of the questions are legal. If there are certain questions which are on the non-legal side, we'll also loop in Mr. Singh for his expertise offline. Can we put up a document with all these questions and some brief answers and share the entire document with all the attendees as a takeaway? Because
we can definitely do that, because
it will be injustice if I even rapid fire cannot wind up the questions. There are over 100 questions, by the way, and we can't do justice to that in the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So if we can make a good document, share it with everyone if that's possible.
We will do that definitely, because I see there are certain very interesting questions, and it's not for all of you, it's for us also. These kind of questions enhance our knowledge and skills. So thank you so much for asking such questions, and we will definitely get back to you with the answers of all these questions. I will request the Complinity team to share the same with all of you.
Yeah, sure. So what I'll request is in the chat box, anyone who has not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please click the link right now, else you will forget. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, press on the the bell icon 2 times so that you get the video of these excerpts. Follow our LinkedIn page, Instagram page. We'll post updates of these webinars and these things. And when we also upload the downloads on our website, you'll get notified through these updates. So please, right now, spend 30 seconds in clicking. And I think we can end the webinar on this note. Somehow Chandan looks like his connectivity, there is some issue. So Chandan in absentia, a word of thanks for Chandan for sharing all the technical inputs on the 198 and unspent amount. Of Chandan is here back. Chandan, I was thanking you in absentia, but now you can hear the word of thanks in person. So thanks, Chandan, for all.
Sorry. Yes, Sumit, I'm here, and sorry, some network problem. Yeah.
No issues. So we're just ending the webinar. I've requested Preeti, and if you could also pitch in to make a good document of all the 100+ questions which we have received, and we'll circulate that to the audience. And thank you, Chandan, for all the technical inputs to the CSR on profit calculations and unspent amounts and the CSR amendment rules, etc., etc. You lived up to the expectation of being a technical partner specializing in company law. So thanks for that. And Preeti, thank you for you too, for sharing the board experiences and the other provisions that you articulated on CSR and other questions that you answered. And Mr. Singh, to open our really eyes of what CSR actually means on the street. CSR is not just a law. It is not just a notification provision or a section. CSR is impacting someone's life. CSR is not to be seen on the wrong side of the ethical, unethical side. I would say that, okay, contribute and take a kickback or a cashback, or how to comply or how to avoid. I think, and not just compliance for the sake of avoiding penalties, but I think Mr. Singh has shown and his company has shown at those levels how CSR can be done. But as Preeti mentioned, it's not about crores of rupees, it's about the intent. I'd like to share a story, a 30-second story with you. There was a company who spent 5 lakh rupees on CSR, right? It's a very small amount as compared to what Mr. Singh shared, just 5 lakh rupees, and they sponsored, they gave it to a hospital which was running free heart surgeries of children with a chronic heart disease. So there was open bypass surgeries of children, and the founder of the trust, the hospital, they came back to the donor. They said, sir, would you like to meet the 3 children of whose surgeries you impacted? I literally had tears in my eyes, and I have goosebumps right now speaking. The 5 lakh that you spent, and the 3 children whose lives got saved, and the families of those 3 children, the hospital said, sir, would you like to meet those children and the lives that you saved? I mean, nothing can be more heartwarming than things like these. If corporates take their initiative to impact, how does it matter? 2% if we are spending for our own country, which has given us everything. If you recollect the quote by John F. Kennedy, he said, "Ask not what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for the country." So if we all as corporates, we all as consultants, we all as NGOs can take the CSR in the right spirit, on the right side of the law, and not think of avoiding it, but think of contributing, not as a compliance, but as a responsibility. And that's why it's not an obligation. It's not CSO. It is CSR. It is a responsibility, not an obligation. And if we all can think in that direction, I think the world will be a better place. Our country will be a better place. And we will be able to make an impact. And I'll also end with another, again, 10-second story. For anyone on this webinar, if you're thinking, what difference will it make? Can you really make a difference in 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh rupees? Or do we have to be as big as MARELLI to really make a large impact? I'll share a brief story. There was a guy on a beach in Kerala, and there was a lot of, when the high tide comes, a lot of fish comes out, and they are struggling for life because the tide goes, but the fish remains on the sand. So the fish is struggling for life, and the boy, he picks up one fish and throws it back to the sea. He picks up another fish, throws it back to the sea. So the another old guy came. He said, "Boy, there are lakhs of fish on the sand, and craving for life. Do you think you're picking up one fish and throwing it back to the sea makes any difference? Makes a large difference." He says, "Yeah, it may not make a large difference." And he picks up another fish and say, "But it does make a difference with this one." And he throws it back to the sea. So, while we may not make a large difference, but I think our conducting the webinar, if it has made some difference, it's a small bit that we can do. You contributing towards CSR, it can make a small difference. You advising your clients towards CSR can make a small difference. And I think together we can make a large difference. So I think on that note, we'll end this webinar on corporate social responsibility. Thank you to eMinds Legal. Thank you to Preeti. Thank you to Chandan. Thank you to Mr. Singh. Thank you, Complinity, for hosting such a wonderful webinar. We'll keep coming up with more webinars and see you next time around. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience, most of all.
Thank you
for attending large numbers and staying, on the lunchtime as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Chandan. Thank you, Preeti.
Thank you, Ravinder.
Welcome to Complinity Technologies. Complinity is India's leading governance, risk and compliance software helping companies to manage their compliance, contracts, litigation, legal updates, inter-financial controls and more. Complinity is a one-stop shop for all GRC needs. With our proprietary 12 GRC modules and real-time legal updates on 2,000 plus laws and 24,000 plus compliances, all in an integrated platform that is easy to use with automated alerts and risk management capabilities, is why compliance managers, general counsels and chief financial officers choose Complinity every time. Join the most innovative and prestigious brands that use Complinity. Automating your compliance management. Request a demo at complinity.com.